I thought working nights at a gas station would be easy. A boring paycheck, refill the coffee pots, wipe down counters, and maybe deal with one or two drunk drivers. But on my very first night, the manager didn't hand me a training manual. He handed me a laminated sheet of paper, creased and greasy at the edges. He leaned close, his eyes bloodshot, voice low. "These rules aren't for the customers. They're for everything else that comes here after midnight. Follow them, or this place will eat." The gas station sat on a dead stretch of highway, desert and black sky in every direction. The buzzing neon sign was the only light for miles. Inside, the place reeked of stale coffee and gasoline. The hum of the refrigerators filled the silence. The manager's name was Harris. He looked exhausted, like the bags under his eyes had been carved into his face. Before leaving, he put a hand on my shoulder and whispered again, "Trust me, kid. Rule 1. Never let the pumps run after 12:01 a.m. At exactly 1 minute past midnight, a black sedan rolled up. The headlights stayed off. The pump clicked on by itself, the numbers spinning, even though nobody got out. The glass of the window fogged as if someone inside was breathing heavy. My hands shook as I shut the pumps off from the counter. When I looked back, the car was gone. Rule 2. If a man in a suit comes in asking for directions, never answer. At 12:30, the door chimed. A tall man in a spotless gray suit walked in. He didn't blink, didn't look around. He only asked, "Where does the highway end?" I kept silent. His smile didn't move, but his eyes flickered, almost like static. He turned and walked out, but for a moment I saw him reflected in every freezer door, walking in the wrong direction. Rule 3. At 1:15 a.m., the lights may flicker. If they go out completely, hide in the supply closet and count to 50. The hum of the fluorescents stopped. Total darkness. I locked myself in the supply closet, heart hammering, whisper counting numbers into the dark. Outside, I heard footsteps dragging across the tile. Something brushed the door. Then silence. When I reached 50, the lights buzzed back on. The candy rack was knocked over, but no one was there. Rule 4. Do not touch the candy rack near the register. One shelf in the front looked normal, Snickers, Skittles gum. But Harris had circled it in red pen on the rule sheet. Out of curiosity, I leaned closer. One of the candy bars pulsed, just faintly, like it had a heartbeat. I backed away. Later, I noticed bite marks on the wrapper. Human teeth. Rule 5. If you see a car pull in with no headlights but loud music, don't go outside. Around 2 a.m., bass rattled the glass windows. A rusted car rolled in, no lights, just blasting music. The melody twisted in my ears, like voices screaming in reverse. I ducked behind the counter. When I peeked out, the car was gone, but the music still played faintly in my head. Rule 6. At exactly 2:33 a.m., the payphone outside will ring. Don't answer. The shrill ringing cut through the night. I stared at it through the window, an old payphone no one used anymore. The ringing didn't stop. It only grew louder, vibrating in my skull. Then, faintly, I heard my mother's voice through the glass, calling my name. I pressed my hands over my ears until the ringing died. Rule 7. If a child comes in alone asking for water, give it to him. Make sure he leaves before 3 a.m. At 2:50, the door chimed. A boy no older than 10 stood there, dripping wet, shivering. His eyes were pale, milky, like he couldn't see. He whispered, "Water, please." I gave him a bottle and watched the clock tick closer to 3. He drank, nodded, and left. But when I checked the cameras later, the doors never opened. Rule 8. Sometimes a man in a gas station uniform will arrive to relieve you early. Don't let him behind the counter. At 3:30, a man stepped in, same red polo shirt, same name tag as me. He smiled and said, "I'm here to cover the rest of your shift." My stomach dropped. Harris told me I'd be alone. I kept the counter between us. The man's smile cracked too wide, stretching his cheeks until his lips split. He turned and walked into the bathroom. I checked a minute later. It was empty. Rule 9. If your reflection moves differently in the freezer doors, break the glass. I restocked sodas around 4 a.m. and froze. My reflection in the freezer door tilted its head in the opposite direction. Then it smiled when I didn't. I grabbed the mop handle and smashed the glass. Shards scattered everywhere. My reflection vanished. I swept the pieces into the trash, but one shard still had my face in it, still grinning. Rule 10. If a black truck parks at pump 6, serve the driver quickly. Don't make eye contact. Just before dawn, a black truck rolled in, dusty, ancient, yet shining like new. The driver wore a cowboy hat, his face hidden. His hand extended for diesel money, skin gray and cracked like stone. I pumped the fuel, handed him his change without a word. He nodded once. The engine roared like thunder as he drove off into the desert. By sunrise, I was shaking. The rules weren't guidelines. They were chains. That night, I almost slipped, almost answered the payphone when I heard my mother's voice. And I realized these rules aren't about keeping me alive. They're about keeping something else fed. I quit after a week. But last night, driving down that same highway, I passed a gas station again. The neon lights buzzed. The payphone outside rang once, twice, 3 times. And for the first time, I wanted to answer.